All right, now we're going to look at this camera, the Kowa 6, and there were three different versions of this, and this is the first one. It came out in 1968, and it doesn't have interchangeable backs, but it has interchangeable lenses, interchangeable finders, and it has a finder that even has a built-in light meter. So it's a true system camera. It's got a dozen different lenses, fantastic, all the way from, I think it's 18 millimeter fisheye, and some remarkable 35 millimeter and 40 millimeter with this. This is 40, and these are true rectilinear, no distortion. So wonderful lenses. I'm so fortunate to have this to play around with here at this old drive-in theater. But then there are other lenses that go all the way up to 500. So it's a true system camera. It was designed to compete with Hasselblad and did a pretty good job. But the first one came out no interchangeable back. Doesn't have a double exposure capability. Then they came up with an MM version that had a double exposure capability. And then the last version was the Kowa Super 66. That had all the features of the previous models, plus interchangeable backs. And that's the one that I had for years. And Stuart's letting me use this one today. He's got an extensive collection. And when he told me he had a 40 millimeter lens for it, I got pretty excited about that. As you might recall, I'm kind of a wide angle and a filter junkie. So the wide angle lenses allow such creativity. So I'm going to be enjoying working with this. Now this 40 millimeter, as I mentioned, rectilinear, and it is actually smaller, it's lighter, and half the price of a Hasselblad or some of those. I have a Rollei SL66, and that's much larger. And both the Hasselblad and the Rollei, they have these huge bayonet mount. You can put filters on there, but you have to have their special bayonet mount. And this one it's a 95 millimeter threaded filter. So I happen to have a couple 95 millimeters that I used on my Tamron 150 to 600 and my Hasselblad 500 when I had that. And so I'm able to use that warming polarizing filter, and I love that. So this lens, all the lenses are really exceptional, particularly the 40 and the 35. The 80 is really good, but the controls are on the top. As you look down on the top, you can just turn the dials here, and you can adjust the f-stop and shutter speed. Pretty straightforward. And it has a PC outlet. Just plug the cord in there for your electronic flash. And when you want to use electronic flash, you have to set this button on the bottom here to X. The M setting, there are three settings on the lenses, M, X, and a V. Now the M is for flash bulbs, X is for electronic flash, and the V is supposed to be a 10-second delay timer. But on this lens, it doesn't seem to be working, so I'm not going to worry about that. But that's a great feature to have, so keep that in mind. And the lenses, as I said, are extremely sharp. And to change them, it's not real tricky, but you just turn the bayonet here, or turn this ring, and that will stop at a certain point. You can't lift the lens off yet. You have to push this little lever, and it frees it up, and then you can turn it the rest of the way, lift the lens right out. Make sure always that the lens is cocked, that the camera is cocked before you try to take off anything or put anything on. And you'll see that the two pins will line up with inside the camera here, red dot on the top, and it'll just set back down in place. Sure it will. There we go. Kind of hard to do this from the side sort of here. So I want to load this, and there's a little trick to it. You see that this back actually swings up, opens up, and you'll have to remove this type of finder. This is the 90-degree finder. It's a great eye level. But to release the finders, all you have to do is push the little pin, and then this just slides straight forward. Now I'm going to put on the waist level finder, and that again is just a reverse process. Just slides right in the little groove there, and it locks in place. So we're all good to go on that. And now the back, you can lift it up. So we're going to be using that a little later. So now you'll see that we're going to open the back by releasing this little knob here. And you'll see the C for close, O for open. And on the bottom, that's the tripod mount socket. Just turn that and it lifts right up. Now it's pretty simple, straightforward, nothing to it. There is a 12 exposure and 24 exposure, so you can use 120 or 220 film on this. So we're just going to put the film in the bottom here, and you can always check when you turn the knob to advance, you'll see that the sprocket up on the top here turns. Okay, so we're going to have to move this one spool up to the top, and then what we'll do, we'll just wind it on, and there's a red dot right here, and on the film, when we see that arrow lining up there, that's our start point. So you advance the film until it's just that red dot, and then you close the back, and then you wind it to number 1, and you're good to go. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get that loaded, then we'll go out and take some pictures. Yeah, I wanted to share with you something that I use all the time, and that's my depth of field scale on my lenses. Now, sometimes you won't have it on a lens, but you might have it on the camera body, like the Yashica Mat, the 124G, the focusing knob. It's usually around the focusing knob, either on the camera or on the lens. And the Hasselblad and many of these older lenses, the Kowa, they have this beautiful scale that's really easy, and I use it all the time. You'll hear me talking about it when I'm out in the field, but you can't see it very well, so I thought I'd better explain it to you before you head out there. Now you'll see we have a couple rings here. Our main ring here is our focusing ring. See, it's 3 feet, 4 feet, so on. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then we have our f-stops here. One thing that's really interesting, you see these little red arms, those little nubs. You notice as we have a wider open lens, we have a shallower depth of field. So in this case, we have just about almost 4 feet to 4.5 feet in focus. But we can bring more things in focus as we use a smaller f-stop. You'll see that those change, those red little arms, that's extending our depth of field. And of course, at f22, we'll have our maximum depth of field on this lens. When I'm using that Kowa 40 millimeter, that goes all the way down to 32. So occasionally I'm shooting between 22 and 32 on that. But now, look what happens here. Our main subject is 4 feet, and we've got stuff over here less than 3 feet that's in focus pretty much. But infinity, way out here, that's just kind of wasted. So one of the tricks I like to do to get the maximum depth of field, get more things in focus, let's pretend we're focusing, well, say 4 feet. And as we get a smaller f-stop, I'm going to shift the infinity mark till it's inside this marker here. So anything between those two red dots is going to be coming in focus. So I'm just going to shift the focus. I'm not looking through the camera, I'm just going to shift the focus till infinity is opposite that red dot. Now look what happens here. Now we have everything from just between 3.5 and 4 feet is going to be very sharp. Plus, we haven't lost anything off in the distance. All the infinity stuff is going to be in focus. So you'll see when I'm in this little shed, little ticket stand there, that it's pretty cramped quarters, and I'm shooting at less than 4 feet, the near window. But I want to get the building way off in the distance there, that little shack out in the field there in focus. So I use between 22 and 32. So when you hear me talking about that, that's what I'm doing, shifting my focus, adjusting my depth of field scale. And today we're going to be exploring this beautiful old drive-in theater. Very popular back in about 1952 when the Anaconda mine was up and running. But today we're going to be traveling around, scouting some areas within this section. I'll be shooting Portra 400, that's kind of my go-to film, and I almost always like to use that polarizing filter when I'm shooting color film. It gives great saturation, gives the appearance of better sharpness just because of that contrast and all, and cuts through the haze. So I'm set up here for an overall shot, and I found this interesting old warped paint chipping off of it board down here, kind of interesting. I've got the 40 millimeter lens, so I'm going to tilt down a little bit and make that an important part of the composition. And I'll see the screen and all the other important structures in the background. But I'm going to be using the Portra 400, and I use the key stop method or the f16 rule. Normally, it would be the shutter speed would be set to the speed of the film, and then f/16. This is a little older film, and this is negative film, and so instead of rating it at 400, I rate it at 250. So my basic exposure starting out is 250 at f/16. But I've got this polarizing filter, and I've got it maxed out here. I'll lose at least 2 stops on that. So my settings now, I've got it 250 at f/16, but I'm going to, instead of changing my f-stop, I'm going to just change the shutter speed. So I'm going to go 2 stops, 125, 1/60th. That should be fine. And on these lenses, of course, like any lens, you can't go between the shutter speeds, but you can go between the f-stop. So if you want to go between 16 and 22, real easy to do. So I'm all set. Now on this camera, after you take the shot, the screen blacks out, so you have to advance the film again. And I suggest you use the big wheel. There is a fold-out arm here, makes it a little faster, but these older cameras, kind of like me, you got to be real delicate with them. You're just gonna use the big wheel here and go slow and easy on that. So, got a couple good shots there. Now I want to go over. I see this little ticket booth. We'll go see what that looks like. But the cross lighting is really good, and it looks like there's some nice textures on that old wood siding there. So, let's hop on over there. Okay, well I'm all set up for kind of an overview shot. Tight a little bit, but got the polarizer in place, all set. My exposure is set. I'll have to shoot it now. Okay, we have kind of an interesting challenge here. We're almost inside this shed, and depth of field would be a real issue because I like the foreground part of the wall here in focus and all that out in infinity in focus. So what I've done my basic focusing. I'm going to be stopping way down between 22 and 32, and that'll give me a great depth of field. Then I just rotated that my infinity scale to the far side to bring my foreground closer objects in focus. So now I have everything from infinity will be real sharp all the way down to about 2 feet. So that's one of the great advantages of having these really good quality wide angle lenses. And so we're all set, ready to take our next picture. That should be pretty nice. Again, that polarizing filter is bringing out those clouds, but it does something else that's really almost magic. You see this beautiful wood, just direct sunlight or without a polarizer, it looks fine. But when you use the polarizer, you can also bring out these rich colors, more tones, texture, detail in the woods. And that really works out good when you're doing foliage and you've got the trees and that bark. You don't want to wash it out, you want that good detail. Well, that's what a warming filter does for you. Not just a regular polarizer, but the warming polarizer. So let's go find some more shots. What I'll do is just take some pictures, and towards the end here, we'll come back and show you what we got. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. And if you like those images, if you feel you got something out of the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That's really important because it helps people find us, gets us up a little higher in the ratings. And also, if you know any photographers, somebody that might be interested in seeing this video, please consider sharing it with your friends. And most importantly, please consider subscribing. So till next time, have fun and stay focused.